Another practice under the belt. It was a good day at the NovaCare Complex. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. We're presented by Nissan with wait, that's not Reuben Frank. That's Ashlyn Sullivan filling in. Rube, some very deserved time off. I'm Dave Zangaro. Ashlyn, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. I love the double take. Wait a second. This isn't Rube.
I mean, I've done so many of those intros.
We get mistaken for each other a lot.
I'm sure that does happen. So some time off for Rube, but we did have an OTA day on Tuesday down at the NovaCare Complex. So a lot to get into. We talked to Vic Fangio before practice, a bunch of players after. I want to save some time for Vic because he was Vic and he was great.
He's good.
He's very good. But I think where we start today is just with practice. We'll kind of go through attendance. We'll go through some observations. We'll have some side adventures as we talk through some of these things. Let's start with attendance today. Better attendance than last week. Still no Devontae Smith. I wouldn't worry about him. But Ben Van Sumeren back at practice today. That was a good sign. The guys who are not there today, Devontae Smith, Elijah Cooks, Johnny Wilson, EJ Jenkins, and Nakobe Dean wasn't there in the beginning, and then he walked out late.
Mm-hmm.
No one to really worry about. AJ Brown was there, still didn't do any team drills, but and I think that's important to remember when we talk about the offense is that it's going to look different without those guys out there.
For sure. And I think it's been impressive to me, AJ Brown, how involved he's been in this. You know, I think if you would ask an outsider, hey, is AJ Brown going to show up to every OTA? He most likely would say no and be okay with that. I've been really impressed with his attendance. I saw he flew to Iowa for Cooper DeJean's softball tournament. Like when we talk about AJ Brown and the slack he gets for being involved in a lot of conversations about drama in the locker room, I always point to things like this, that this is a guy, like, how can you not say at times that he's team first when he's flying to Iowa for a defensive back?
In fairness, he probably just wanted to show off his baseball swing.
It's pretty
He's
impressive.
got a good one,
Yeah.
so I get.
This is my time to shine.
Yeah, exactly. He shows up a lot, and if he wasn't there, it wouldn't be a big deal. Just like It's not a big deal
with Devontae.
For Devontae Smith. But
Johnny, I'm a little surprised by.
Yeah, Johnny Wilson last week wasn't doing a ton of team drills, so maybe there's like a little injury there.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly sure. But every once in a while there'll just be a guy missing. Like Ben Van Sumeren wasn't there last week. He was there today. I was about to say he didn't do team drills, but I don't know how much we're going to see him in team drills as a fullback. Like he was out there doing some other stuff. So it looks like he's relatively healthy. I'm curious
about his role because I did see on the roster how he's now listed solely as a fullback.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting how they're going to utilize him. I mean, we heard Jeffrey Lurie talk about the return of the fullback on radio stations. So Ben Van Sumeren, that seems like his role, but I'm curious how it translates for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's still like a core special teamer, but he has that new number. It was our first time seeing him in 43, which to me is still Darren Sproles' number. So it's a little weird seeing Ben Van Sumeren in it, but a good sign that he's back on the field. Other injury stuff today, Cam Jurgens on the side field, still not doing practicing much at all, but I don't think there's much to worry about there. He'll be okay. The new offensive lineman Marcus Tate was also on the side field with Cam Jurgens. Avery Williams was walking around, so that's an injury for Avery Williams. We didn't see him last week. The return specialist / receiver / running back, whatever he is, not practicing yet. And I think that's just about it for injuries. We mentioned Nakobe showed up late. He's not practicing. Jahad Campbell, he had a helmet on today just to watch practice, which is like ultimate football guy move.
It's like stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was I think you always have to be careful when talking about injuries. I was talking with Nakobe Dean. I've been impressed also. He's been at every single Eagles charity event all off season. And I was at the Eagles Women Football Forum over the weekend, and Nakobe was one of the key guys there breaking down film for all the women in attendance. And he was telling me how good he's feeling, how he's back soon. Loved his attendance. And then Vic Fangio says in the press conference today how he's not coming back for, I believe the quote was, a good bit.
Yeah.
So I can see for Eagles fans why it's confusing. Like, okay, well, when's he coming back then? Because we're hearing two different things.
Yeah, I always I think about the players always going to be super optimistic, and they should be. They're trying to get back as soon as they can, but sometimes the team has to pull them back a little bit, and that's probably what's happening there. I remember Sidney Brown last year talking about like he was going to be ready for training camp, and then he misses the beginning of the season. So, whenever a player talks about their own injury, you have to kind of
play doctor a little bit.
So we'll see what happens with Nakobe. Jahad Campbell, Vic Fangio on his own today said that he didn't expect to have Jihad Campbell at practice, like actually practicing until August.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the calendar, the Eagles begin training camp in July,
Yeah.
end of July. So it tells you that he might not be ready for the start of camp either.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine both of them starting on the PUP list, which I don't think would be a shock to anyone based off their injuries. A great opportunity for Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and other guys to get these first team reps. And I think if anyone can overcome it, it is Nakobe Dean and Jihad Campbell. We know their talent, but it's definitely a blow. And you just hope they're ready by middle to end of training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of becomes a race. Like whoever comes back first is probably going to be the starting
very true
middle linebacker.
So
maybe not
timing.
Maybe not the Mike. Maybe if it's Campbell, they'd give that to Zach Bond. But it feels like whichever one of those guys is healthy first is going to be the guy.
Yeah, which I would guess just based off the injuries, that's Jihad Campbell who's ready first. Again, we don't want to play doctor, but just based off what you normally see with these torn tendons.
Yeah, the torn patellar tendon is a pretty brutal injury.
Yeah.
And as much as you want to take Nakobe at his word that everything's going great, like it is something that can take a while to get back from.
Agreed.
I think that was all my injury notes today. We're kind of going through this after practice in a hurry before we do TV. So I haven't had a chance to formulate all my thoughts. It's all kind of fresh and in the notebook. So if you hear me leafing around a little bit, it's me going through my notes. I haven't written anything yet.
We're winging it.
Yeah, but I think those were most of the major injury notes today. Depth chart wise, offensively, it was Tyler Steen at right guard. I think that's going to be his position to lose. And in fairness, it kind of was last year at this time too. So take that however you will. But he's been out there every time they're in either offensive line drills or in 11-on-11s. He's been the guy at right guard.
Yeah, I think for Tyler Steen, you mentioned last year, it was a very similar situation. I mean, for these draft picks to hit, for these young guys to hit, they got to at one point become a starter. And Tyler Steen is a great example of that. It's very clear the Eagles are giving him every opportunity to win that job. So now it's on him. You can't say he hasn't been given the opportunities and getting these first team reps again. I'm sure he'll start training camp first team reps, and it's going to be up to the backups to take that away from him. But I think he's going to run away with it, truthfully.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because this time last year, I really thought he was just going to be the plug and play guy. And it took that minor ankle injury early in camp, and then they got Mekhi Becton in there. So maybe that's like maybe that's at the top of Tyler Steen's list is like, don't sprain my ankle on like day
really
3.
Bad timing last year.
Yeah, and it wasn't that bad of an injury either, which kind of makes you think like they were looking for a reason to try Becton out there.
Because it came out of nowhere, and then we're like, oh, he'll be out a week. And then we just never spoke about him again the rest of training camp.
And early on in camp that year, they had Landon Dickerson missed a couple of days, and they actually put Becton in there first. So I think they got a glimpse of like what he looked like at guard and said, oh, maybe he's going to be a better option than Steen. And I guess he was. So, but we'll see what happens there with Steen. Second team offensive line, as I find my notes here. This is going to be fun today. They had, where is it?
We need to get you a spreadsheet.
You know, it's like all by shorthand too, which is a nightmare. Oh, you know what? I got to find the 11-on-11s in here. Okay, here we go. So they had Kendall Lamb, and then it was weird. They had Trevor Keegan in there for the first snap, and then they took him out at left guard, and they put in Kenyon Green, Drew Kendall at center. They had Darian Kennard at right tackle, and they had Matt Pryor at right guard. So Matt Pryor kind of in that next right guard spot.
Yeah. It's hard because it has been every OTA they're changing first team reps. So you get solidified on seeing something or even second team. And then the next week it's something different. So that's what it's funny. That's what OTAs is for, is you can't make a huge deal out of how this is lined up because it's going to change 47 times.
Probably. They're going to mix and match a little bit. By the way, it was Brett Toth at center today without Cam Jurgens. They will not quit that Brett Toth center experiment they keep doing.
It's quite the experiment.
Yeah.
Talk about a guy getting every opportunity.
5. Yeah. And then third team, you don't really need to know all this. Cameron Williams was at left tackle. Miles Hinton was at right tackle. Drew Kendall at center again. They had Laken Vakalehi at right guard. And their left guard was Holland Pierce, who, by the way, he's enormous, but he's been a guard every time we've seen him. So I think they look at him as a guard now.
Agreed.
In terms of other depth chart stuff offensively, not a lot of AJ Brown in team drills. We saw some Saquon in team drills today.
In the passing game,
a little bit. Yeah. Some dump offs to the flat. They also gave him one handoff, which is funny in a shorts and shells practice, but
some AJ Dillon as well, some Dallas Goedert. Yeah, I thought it was a more entertaining day for the offense than at least last week.
A little bit. Yeah, there was one big play, and we'll get to that a little bit. It was mostly
That's what we show up for.
Yeah, mostly underneath. Defensive depth charts. Actually, some interesting stuff here, though, because Reed Blankenship was back. Last week when we were at practice, he wasn't there. So with Reed Black, we're like, all right, with Reed Blankenship back, it's like, who's going to be the other safety next to him? First up was Sidney Brown, and then they rotated in Drew Makuba. Tristan McCullum got some snaps, and then very late in practice, Lewis Seen got a look.
Yeah, and I think it was noteworthy. I think from what we have seen so far with Vic Fangio here as defensive coordinator, Vic gets what Vic wants. And we were talking about the safety battle, which we know is going to be one of the highlights of training camp. Seems like Sidney Brown, Drew Makuba, it's going to be one of the two. But Vic went out of his way to say, don't forget about Tristan McCullum. So that is truthfully, I forget about him. And
what'd you make of that?
I think that's Vic telling us, I want this guy in the mix. And I think Vic is so honest. He's so refreshing in a press conference. Like, you never walk away confused. So when Vic goes out of his way to mention a player, I'm like, okay, we better pay attention to this guy. To me, Sidney Brown, maybe it's unfair. I just haven't seen enough of him to feel confident that he is a starting safety in the NFL. I think he's a fantastic special teams contributor. Maybe it's the injury. But when I look at Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown, does that really ruffle feathers? Does that make you excited about the safety position? Like, I don't know why. I can't get behind it. And maybe that's unfair.
I think a lot of it with Sidney is it's year 3. And it's like, when is it going to happen?
Yeah.
But in terms of play style, it kind of would be exciting. He's going to make a lot of mistakes too, but he's like
a lot of penalties.
Yeah. I mean, he plays with such an aggression. It's going to be a fascinating battle in summer. And I really do think it's going to come down to those two. I know that Vic mentioned Tristan McCullum, and I get that because Tristan, smart kid, not like not super athletic like some of these other guys, but he's going to probably be where he needs to be. He's going to listen to you. He's going to be coachable. I don't think that putting Tristan McCullum on the field gives you your best shot to get your best 11.
Yeah, and we just don't know what Makuba is right now. I mean, I could so see it where Sidney Brown starts training camp and Makuba comes in and runs away with it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, that there's a couple preseason games and he wins the job. Because I do think Sidney is a fantastic plug-and-play asset where he will know the defense. He'll be able to do his job. But is he the starter every week? I can't have confidence saying that right now.
Yeah, I don't know. And they're going to make Makuba earn it. It's kind of what they do with the rookies. Even last year, they made Quinyon. And honestly, the fact that Makuba's getting this many first-team snaps right now kind of tells you something.
Agreed.
They weren't doing this last year with Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean. So
right. But once we saw Quinyon on the field the first week of training camp, we're like, all right, once he's there, he's not coming off.
Sure, but they even started him as like, remember they were playing in like dime package, and it was nickel, and then and
Fangio kept saying, I want him on the outside. I want him on the outside.
And they built him up. So I mean, the fact that Makuba's already getting some significant snaps at safety in the spring is probably pretty telling. Cornerback, we'll go there next. It was interesting. In 7-on-7s, they had Quinyon Mitchell on the left side, which they did last week too, but they were in base for the entirety of that first 7-on-7 period, which meant Cooper DeJean was on the outside. And I think that's the only reason they're giving all those base snaps is just to see how he handles himself on the outside.
Right. It's confusing to me because in Vic Fangio's presser, we talked so much. We asked him so many questions about Cooper's ability to play on the outside because we saw it a lot the first week as well. And Fangio almost joked with us, like, how many times are we actually going to see that in the season? He's like, you might see Cooper on the outside 10% of the snaps. But then we go watch this practice, and it's the first 3 drives are him on the outside. So it does make you think that they're doing this just to see how he does.
Yeah, and they should, because even though it's not a significant percentage of snaps, it probably equates to like 10 to 15%. It was 160 snaps in base last year. It's 160 snaps.
Yeah.
Like it's not completely insignificant over the course of an entire season. So I understand why they want to see him get that work. And then we're going to talk about what Vic said in a little bit, but this kind of flows into it. he mentioned that basically Cooper's going to be on the field in their base package for those, 150, 160 snaps, but he allowed that it could also be at safety.
Yeah.
Which is something that, we knew when they drafted Cooper DeJean, he had the ability to maybe play some safety. We haven't seen him get reps there. The fact that Vic brought it up on his own it raised an eyebrow.
I totally agree. And it just goes to show the versatility of Cooper DeJean. I mean, talk about a guy, no one's having a better offseason than Cooper DeJean.
I don't know. I haven't seen him anywhere. Has he been doing anything?
Oh, he's everywhere. The man is everywhere. I follow him on social media and I can't keep up. I'm tired just watching every place he's going. But with Cooper DeJean, I do love the versatility of bumping him back to safety. But it's pretty clear to me with Vic Fangio what he's talking about Cooper and the success he already had last season. Almost like you don't want to mess with it. You don't want to put too much on his plate. He played so well last season in his one position. To now go and add so many wrinkles, to me, I could see how it's overwhelming to a player, even if he has the athletic ability to do it.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful about that. And also, it's like you got to make sure that that's the best option for the team, whether he's outside or at safety. But I think they've already decided, and this is just my hunch, they've already decided he's going to be on the field every snap. And it's just a matter of when they're in base, is it going to be at outside corner or is it going to be at safety? The safety thing is, he might be a better option at safety than Sidney Brown or Drew Makuba, whoever ends up in that spot.
And maybe that's why, because they feel like they're lacking talent and depth at safety.
Yeah, but it comes down to is he a better option at safety, or who would you rather have on the field? Would you rather have Sidney Brown or Drew Makuba, whoever wins that job, versus Adoree Jackson or Keely Ringo? Because he's going to replace either one of those players, whoever it ends up being. So I think they don't know yet.
Right. When you just put it like that, I would much rather see Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo, and Cooper DeJean on the field, and how some way getting those three mixed in. I feel much more confident with that than having a Sidney Brown and Drew Makuba right now.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out, because he's going to play all those snaps. It's just a matter of
that gives this team the best chance to win, is finding a way to keep Cooper DeJean on the field.
Linebacker, we mentioned it. It's all Trotter right now, and I guess that makes sense. They don't really have any other options, but you see them cycling through so much at safety. It's been Zach Bond and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. every single first team snap.
Yeah, it's an awesome opportunity for him, and I think he's getting a little more comfortable in his skin. I thought his press conference went well today. He was joking around, showing some personality. Trotter's a guy that I think maybe next season could be a starter. I don't think, we all know he's not going to be one most likely this year based on the injuries. But a guy at this point, I think when Eagles fans talk about Trotter, you would have confidence that he could go in there and deliver a job, and that he could be trustworthy, coachable. I think I'd be fine with Trotter starting the year if need be. Yeah,
I mean, you go back to the playoffs, Vic's plan was to rotate Oren Burks and Trotter, and then Oren went in and played so well that Trotter was kind of the man left out of the equation. But is he ever going to be a starter here? I don't know, because they have guys in front of him, but he's a valuable player to have. Oren Burks didn't have to play until the playoffs last year and ended up coming in and really helping them win a Super Bowl. So
and getting a deal out of it.
Yeah, you feel pretty good, I think, about Trotter and his evolution and his ability to stick in there whenever he needs to.
Yeah, I credit him. It's a guy that's just put his head down and worked, and you don't hear a lot from him. Just a guy that shows up every day. I think a really great asset, and you could so see why Fangio loves having a guy like this.
Absolutely. I think those are all of my important depth chart notes.
They're very important.
From today as I go through, just to make sure here. Oh, a defensive line, it doesn't really matter because it's passing camp, but the guys they put out there first today were Patrick Johnson, Thomas Booker, Moro Ujima, Jordan Davis, and Jalix Hunt. It's funny, they don't play Jalen Carter at all in these spring practices, at least when we see him, because it's he would just wreck.
He'd mess the whole drill up.
Yeah, so he doesn't get many reps in these practices.
But credit to him for still being there.
Yeah, okay. That's all I had for depth chart stuff. Let's talk about the best play of the day, I thought, offensively. Jalen Hurts to Dallas Goedert down the left sideline, Zach Bond trailing in coverage. It's just a perfect pass from Hurts, and he doesn't get a chance to air it out very much in these spring practices. It might have been his only throw of over 15 yards today. This one was 25.
I think it was the only one.
30 yards. Yeah, it's been a lot of dinking and dunking, but this was a pretty ball, and he throws a good deep ball.
He does. It was right on the money, right into the basket. And especially, I mean, that matchup of Dallas Goedert one-on-one on a linebacker, Dallas Goedert should win that battle every single time. And it just goes to show, when we were having the conversation, what would the Eagles do without having Dallas Goedert as a wrinkle in this offense? Is Grant Calcaterra making that catch? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, that's the thing that you have to have with Dallas Goedert, is if he's good for one of those a game, that flash play, then I think he's worth the contract.
Yeah, certainly worth the contract. And without AJ, without Devontae, in these first two practices that we've been able to watch, they're up to, 5 practices? We've seen 2 of them. But without the top 2 weapons, it's a lot of Dallas Goedert, which is also what we saw in the summer last year, and it didn't necessarily translate.
I didn't think it translated at all.
Yeah, but it is a nice security blanket to have him around. It's just because you know that it's there. You know, if you have a game where you're missing AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, you feel pretty good about having Dallas Goedert out there. Yeah,
especially I've been little surprised, even though it is OTAs. I get it. The lack of usage of Jahan Dotson, because that's a guy that banging down the door like, hey, remember, I'm a first round pick. Remember, I can be utilized in this offense. And I haven't seen the targets at all.
Yeah, he's had a few. And you think back to, the one game where they were resting their guys and Jahan had a ton of targets, showed he could be productive. You're right. It's been kind of a quiet spring for him, at least in the 2 practices we've been there.
Agreed.
I'll give you one guy he hasn't been a quiet spring for, and someone I definitely have my eyes on. It's Danny Gray, former 3rd-round pick of the 49ers, number 80. I've actually seen him drop 2 balls in these 2 practices, but he's getting a lot of targets go his way, and he seems to make a lot of plays. He has eye-popping speed, 4.33. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Danny Gray is going to be the training camp darling of 2025. He's going to be the guy who in training camp has a couple of deep balls go his way and gets everyone talking and like, you can't cut this guy. He'll get picked up by the 31 other teams, and then he ends up on the practice squad.
Yeah, there's one every year. But it's a great story, and it's so fun to watch every single practice.
He's been good.
Yeah, he has been good. I've noticed him as well. I've been a little surprised with Johnny Wilson. We don't know if it's an injury or not, but I was just so impressed with him last training camp, his speed. I just think he separates himself from the wide receivers. I wouldn't be surprised. My prediction, I think Johnny Wilson beats out Jahan Dotson for that 3rd spot. I think that given the opportunity, Jahan Dotson, he hasn't taken it and run with it. I just think Johnny Wilson could be so much more utilized as a red zone threat, similar body style to AJ Brown. I think Johnny Wilson deserves more reps.
That's fascinating. I don't know if that's going to happen. And maybe that's just because they
paid.
It's like he's a 1st-round pick. They have him under contract. He probably also fits a little better in the slot when they use him there.
And they don't have another guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like Anias, he's really undersized, and we haven't really seen much of him at all.
Seen anything from?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching Anias in training camp though, because he last summer was really kind of a disaster for him. And but to his credit, or maybe to his give him an excuse here, but he had that stress fracture in the spring, missed all the spring, missed the beginning of training camp, and then just like couldn't catch up. So maybe with a full summer, a full off season, he'll be a little bit better. I think that's possible.
Yeah, was a brutal off season for him last year. That's for sure.
I might be ready to call the 3rd quarterback job.
Yes, already. 2 OTs in.
I saw Kyle McCord throw his first pass today. And I think he's just better than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And that's unfair. Obviously, I'm kind of joking here because I do want to see it in training camp. But Thompson-Robinson had the worst throw of the day, and McCord might have had the best.
Yeah. His mechanics just look better. He looks smoother. He looks more comfortable. I mean, he's no Tanner McKee. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
But 3rd quarterback job, I agree.
Yeah. Sometimes with quarterbacks, and Reuben and I have talked about this, it's like you can see it. They get out there and you watch them throw a few footballs and it's like, is it there or is it not there? Yeah. And with McCord,
so they have that spark.
Yeah, there's just something. It just looks right.
Yeah.
Not that like a funky motion couldn't work or an unorthodox type of quarterback couldn't work. And if we're talking about DTR, it is fair to point out, like, in a game, he's going to be able to use his mobility better than in a practice.
Especially in OTA.
Yeah. So I guess that's important too. But he had this one little kind of a flat route to, I forget who the running back was, and he just like noodle armed it.
Yeah.
It was really his first chance to throw the football today, and it was ugly. And then McCourt at the end of practice just ripped the ball into Kyle Granson. It was like a fastball in a tight window, needed to be there. And I was just really impressed by that throw.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it needs a little more time. I'm with you. But I could so see that shaking out the way it is, where Kyle McCourt wins the third quarterback job.
Yeah. And like going into it, they drafted him, so he probably
you want those reps.
Has the advantage anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he plays a little bit better than DTR, it's going to be over pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Mac McWilliams, rookie corner, had a big pass breakup today on the sideline against someone. I don't know. It's in my notes, but it was an impressive play. I'm not going to be able to find this right now, but
that's okay.
Yeah, it was a good pass breakup on 85. Who's 85?
Oh gosh,
85 is Harrison Bryant. Yeah, it was a nice pass breakup on the right sideline, and I do enjoy when there's a pass breakup because all the defense kind of goes nuts.
Yeah, gives you a little juice.
Yeah, I like
OTA. People ask a lot, like OTAs, like what do you pay attention to? I'm like, okay, well, we pay attention to how the defense is lined up. That's by far our biggest notes normally. Then I do use this time to start quizzing myself on the numbers because it's a lot of new faces, new numbers, and you want your numbers set by training camp. So you're not always looking down at your roster during training camp.
Exactly.
So I look down like, all right, 85, you know this, Ash, and you know this.
And in my notes, it's for people who don't know how I operate, like it's all numbers because I'm not writing down names.
No.
It takes too long. So yeah, early on, I have to figure out all the numbers.
Yeah, we start quizzing ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what this time is for.
It really is. I think that was just about all of my notes today. I saw one rep in 21 personnel with two running backs out there. They had Saquon actually kind of in the slot as a receiver, and they had Will Shipley in the backfield. This is also something they did last summer, and it never really happened.
Well, I make this point all the time on Bird's Huddle, is it looks so stunning in training camp. And having Saquon involved in the passing game, like nailing every single play. And last training camp, I was like, this is going to be a huge wrinkle of the offense, and what a versatility to have for an offensive coordinator. And then we barely saw it last year. And now we're seeing it again in OTAs. And I'm like, why are they practicing this so much? Why are they utilizing this so much when we barely saw it in the games last year?
Yeah, I guess a lot of it's like the run game doesn't really take effect until the games start in a lot of ways. So maybe that's part of it. Also saw some play action today.
Yeah.
Which I started chuckling to myself that, if Kellen Moore turns on the tape this year and he sees the Eagles all of a sudden running all this play action, he might pull his hair out.
Curse you. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we asked him every week, where's the play action?
That was the only other thing I had in my notes. My stupid observation of the day is when they went through, and I do a stupid observation of the day. You could argue that there's more than one in here, but when they go through ball security drills, Jalen went through one today. The guy with the mitt on the pole looked very scared today. He barely touched Jalen as he went by.
Could you imagine having that job and nailing him?
I understand that because you don't want to take out the quarterback in OTAs. June 3rd.
Can I add? I have a very funny one.
Mm-hmm.
So where we all stand, the media, we all stand across the line, obviously on the field, and the play was over here, and there was a media member way behind the huddle. And he had a water bottle on the ground.
Yeah.
And Dom and the PR staff stopped the play and said, "Get that water bottle off the ground." Like the play would have to go 20 yards backwards to even be anywhere close to the water bottle. But if an ACL tear happens because of that water bottle.
Well, a lot of it goes back to Andy Reid rules. Andy Reid was a big, everyone's got to be standing, nothing on the ground. You can't sit on the bleachers. And you covered Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, right?
He would not let us even kneel.
Yeah. So
he would give you one of these.
Yeah. So Doug adopted those rules from Andy, who did it at Lehigh for years and years and years. And apparently when Andy got to town and he started doing all that, everyone's like, what is this guy
Why do we care about a water
trying
bottle?
to prove? Yeah. But yeah, it's one of the rules. No sitting, no kneeling, no squatting. You stand there, you keep things off the ground, you watch practice.
The end.
That's
no
it.
Funny business.
Yeah. A few other little odds and ends. Tanner McKee with the bucket hat during warm-ups is a strong look.
It is. Strong, confident.
Yeah.
The guy that knows he's the backup quarterback.
Yeah. That's like a backup quarterback swag essential is to have the bucket hat.
Because you know it's never coming off. Yeah. You know nothing crazy is going to happen where you have to take the hat off.
What else? Joe Douglas was out there at practice today. First time seeing him back around. Jeffrey Lurie, back up from Palm Beach, was there.
This polo.
The Toledo coaching staff Jason Candle, Nick Sirianni's buddy, they were there. William and Mary, I believe, was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So fun times at the NovaCare complex today. Anything else from practice?
I don't think so. I think we nailed it.
Let's take a break. I want to get into what Vic Fangio said because there was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
We are back on the Eagle Eye podcast. Ashlyn Sullivan and Dave Zangaro here. A much-deserved break for Rube. Vic Fangio, before practice, he spoke for 15 minutes, and it's great. I'm still refreshed by Vic Fangio.
I am too. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. Just the honesty, no confusion. You know exactly where you stand. You have all the answers you need. It's a thing of beauty.
It's so nice. And it was funny. I was talking to someone today about it, that thinking back to last year, it took me till half of the season to realize that I could just ask a direct question and he would answer it.
Yes.
You spend so much time figuring out, how can I ask this question that they'll give me something and read between the lines? No, just ask Vic and I'll tell you. Yeah. It's great. He was asked,
Reed Blankenship the starter. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. He was asked about Bryce Huff. He brought up the injury, which might not be entirely truthful, right? Because we saw he played through the injury, but even before the injury, Bryce Huff didn't seem like a fit, but he did allow that he thinks Huff is going to be able to have some success in San Francisco.
I think that's definitely going to happen. And I think fans will be like, oh my gosh, how'd they let this guy go? He's going to go light it up somewhere else. It just was very clear from really the first, 3 weeks of the season that this just wasn't going to fit the scheme that they wanted. And I think we find out with Vic Fangio, when he likes a guy, he likes a guy. And when he doesn't see a fit, that it's really hard for that guy to come back into the fold. And it just seemed like Huff was not going to work out. Yes, the injury didn't help out. He mentioned, with the hand taking away as a pass rusher, that's a huge weapon you're taking away. And I also think it was truthful, and I think fans can understand this with Huff out, a guy like Nolan Smith getting more snaps, basically just running away with the job, which I think you should want from someone like a Nolan Smith, a high draft pick, to take that opportunity and run with it.
Yeah, Vic brought up Nolan Smith and Jay Lixon as guys who they got more opportunity and they played well. And at that point, you're not going to take them off the field for Huff. I still think if they wanted Bryce Huff to be on the field, he probably would have been on the field. But that was kind of the last word from Vic on Huff. Similar comments, I guess, about C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He was asked about his thoughts of why C.J.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, how C.J. was traded, and he just said that was a salary cap thing. I was fine with it.
The end. Period.
Yeah. And look, we don't have to read between the lines with Vic often, but if Vic Fangio said, this is a guy I need in my defense, he's still here right now.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I'm curious how this defense looks without him, because we saw a huge drop off when CJ was traded the first time. We talked so much how they needed that swag back. They needed that energy back. We saw it in the locker room. Is he a lot? Yes. He is up and down. He is a lot to handle. I mean, what you see on the field is what he is off the field, but it was no question that this defense was better with him. And now I see a huge drop off in the safety position.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, just in terms of play, there's probably a drop off, and then there's all the intangibles, like whether or not it was always positive, I don't know. But
CJ, see it being too much at times.
Yeah, sure. CJ brought energy. Reed Blankenship was actually asked about that, and he said, we have swagger as a defense now. We don't, we're not worried about that. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens there. Jihad Campbell, and this is a question I wish we could have asked Vic on draft night, and we haven't talked to him since the Super Bowl, but he said that Jihad Campbell is starting with he is beginning his career with the inside linebackers, basically because that's harder.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a more complex position to learn, especially off the field. And you asked him about his pass rushing abilities, if he had them. He's like, yeah, he's got them, but right now we're not using that. But when you look at just the depth chart, they definitely need him more as a pass rusher than more of an inside linebacker. I mean, I'm concerned about the pass rushing depth right now and the drop off of losing someone like a Josh Sweat. When you just look at this on paper, it's like he has to be a pass rusher.
Yeah, maybe. I still think he's going to be, you might need him to start at inside linebacker.
with Nakobe's injury.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought, is that he might begin the season as an inside linebacker. And then if Nakobe, if or when he comes back, maybe then you can have the ability to use him more off the edge. But you're right. I mean, edge rusher is, I'm going through a story I'm working on of like the biggest concerns about this team. And I think the pass rush is up there. And
I think it's top 2.
Yeah, you watch the Super Bowl last year and you go, man, they must have dominated all year. And they really didn't. And then they lost Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Milton Williams. Yeah, and they might be fine. Maybe More Ujima takes a big jump. Maybe Jalen Hunt takes that jump. Maybe Azeez Ojulari stays healthy. Maybe Josh Uche is a functional player. But that's like a lot of ifs and a lot of projection.
So the biggest if to me is we should be excited about Jalen Hunt. We saw him splash in the playoffs and the Super Bowl in the postseason, and rightfully so. I have not seen enough of Jalen Hunt consistently to say that he is going to be this home run hit that I feel like a lot of people are expecting him to be now that they saw this glimpse of him. I'm not ready to say that with confidence that he's going to be this hit. I mean, did he show his athletic ability? Yes. Did he show his upside 100%? But I need to see more of that before I feel confident in it.
Yeah, I get that. It's a projection.
Yeah.
I will say that, like, if I had to tie myself to one of the projections that we just talked about, I think I'd tie myself to Jalix being a really good player.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it.
Yeah.
Enough that they're comfortable enough with not getting Sweat that contract. So, yeah.
Yeah. Over like Azeez Ojulari, is he going to stay healthy? I don't know. He's kind of proven that he won't. Josh Uche has had one really productive year in his career, and that was a few years ago. We kind of know the way that goes in the NFL. So APR is a rookie. So, yeah, if I had to tie myself to one of them, I think it would be Jalix being really good.
I would take Nolan Smith taking another step.
Okay. What's another step look like for Nolan?
Doing it consistently from the start, because I think the first 5-6 games, like, all right, where is it? And then it came and it never went away. But now I'm curious, after a full off season, is he going to start as quickly as he did ending last season? I mean, he's got to. If Nolan Smith doesn't hit this year, this defense is in trouble. Yeah.
I mean, gosh, they would have been sunk without him last year.
Yeah.
You think about, we talked about Bryce Huff. The fact that no one even cared that Bryce Huff was inactive
we didn't even talk about
for the Super Bowl is pretty wild. And it's really because of Nolan Smith. And if he didn't make that jump, it's pretty wild. Jordan Davis, he talked about quite a bit. Vic Fangio said that Jordan is in great shape now, and he started to get in great shape in the second half of last year, which is good. It's just, it's going to be something we always talk about with Jordan, I think. He hasn't gotten past that.
No, I'm shocked we're still talking about it. I don't understand it. Truthfully, I don't understand how this can continue to be an issue, and credit to Jordan Davis for trying to fix it. But it was something we talked about nonstop in the locker room this year. And you're wondering, okay, next offseason, it'll get handled and we won't talk about it. And sure enough, the first thing we hear from Vic Fangio, and it spoke volumes to me when Jalen Carter was asked about Jordan Davis. He was not asked about the weight. He brought it up himself. And Jalen Carter said, yeah, I'm in the building and I see him on the treadmill. It goes to show that the players know this is a major conversation outside of the building. And for Jordan Davis, it's just, what is he? I mean, this is a guy that's trying to play for a new contract. Are you going to give a guy a new contract with this weight issue hanging over his head?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is it seems like he's in shape now. And again, it seems like he said, Jordan Davis, we spoke with him a little bit today, and he said, before he understood what he had to do, he just didn't do it all the time, which isn't great. Yeah, you're professional.
This is your
job. But he said the realization came to him that, like, whenever he needs to, when they need him out there, he needs to be at his best, whether it's first snap, last snap. And he's going to have more an opportunity this year, I would think, on third downs. It made sense last year that you have Milton Williams and you have Ujima and you have all these guys you'd rather have on the field on third downs. And maybe he doesn't play many this year either, but I think there's more of an opportunity for him to play on pass rush downs.
Yeah, it's wild, that admission of, I knew this was a problem and I just didn't fix it. That has to drive a guy like Vic Fangio. That's got to drive him insane.
Yeah, I would think so.
Good choice with the Peloton instructor, though. He did say he fell in love with the Peloton. Ali Love is his favorite instructor. She's mine as well. Very good choice. And if it takes being on the Peloton every day, whatever it takes.
What's her name?
Ali Love.
Ali Love. What separates Ali Love from the other Peloton instructors.
She's just got a lot of juice. She's very optimistic. Okay. She's very positive. I like how she doesn't like yell in your face. Some Peloton instructors are very like.
He probably needs a break from Vic.
Yeah,
and Clint.
I could see how she's refreshing. Like some Peloton instructors are like, life is great, and if you do this, your life's gonna be. It's like very spiritual at times. I'm like, I just need to know what resistance I
trying to ride the
in.
bike. Yeah,
I'm just trying to ride the bike. All right.
That's funny. So we'll see. Well, I mean, I think the entirety of Jordan Davis's career is going to be monitoring his weight, his fitness level.
It's all up to Allie Love. No
all
pressure.
of that. Yeah, Allie Love's got a lot on her plate right now, and Jordan Davis better not.
Very good, Dave.
That's a stupid joke.
Really
Anything
nice.
else from Vic that kind of stood out to you? He talked about a bunch of different topics.
Mentioning Tristan McCollum, I thought was noteworthy in the safety position in that battle. How honest he was about the injuries of Jihad Campbell and Nakobe Dean.
August for Campbell, he said.
Yes, that was interesting for sure. Joking to us about how much they're actually in base defense, even though that's what they started it off with. I think, all right, do you get the same amount of questions? I think Eagles fans are confused about this whole transition for Cooper DeJean and base, and like we're going to see this all the time.
I've been fighting the good fight for a while, trying to explain it. Yeah, it's basically, do you want him to lead the football field or not? If you don't, then he can't play nickel because they're not in nickel the whole time.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah. Which when you make that argument, I think he needs to be on the field as much as possible.
Yeah. The only other thing from Vic that I wrote down was he was asked about the story that Jalix Hunt told.
Oh my gosh.
That Vic kind of didn't rip them, but wanted to point out some of the mistakes they made in the second half of the Super Bowl. Vic said it was fake news.
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either. I think Vic shoots us straight a lot, but I think he did want to correct some things. I think that's like everyone loved that story about Vic.
It's fantastic. And it'd be one thing if a media member came out with the story, but a player in the defensive meeting told us this happened. So
the other possibility here is that meeting really was Vic Fangio's way of heaping praise on his team, but it might have come off.
Or maybe different. Like he showed some good stuff, praise, congratulations, and the last 20 minutes were corrections. Maybe it was a little bit of both.
Yeah, and I have heard from multiple people that he did do that. So I think that he probably did correct some things.
As he should. That's his job.
Exactly.
Super Bowl or not.
I think that's most of the big notes from Vic Fangio. After practice, we did speak with a bunch of players. Among them, we had Jordan Davis, like we mentioned, Dory Jackson, Keely Ringo, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Nolan Smith. Any big takeaways for any of these guys?
Dory Jackson, Keely Ringo, I think all saying the right things, that they understand that it's a battle, that they're going to give it their all. And Keely Ringo was asked about possibly playing safety, how he's up for it. To me, Keely Ringo needs to be your starting corner. He's been given the opportunity. You want to see a high draft pick like this, take this job, and run away with it. Dory Jackson, I get he's trustworthy. You brought him in free agency. They're going to give the upper hand, I think, to the veteran presence. But Keely Ringo is that veteran presence right now. If Keely doesn't win this job, I'm disappointed in that draft pick at this point.
Yeah, it's fair. It was a 4th round pick, so not super high, but they gave up a future 3 to get him.
Yeah.
He was a guy that had 1st round buzz that year. He was super young. He was like 20 years old when he got drafted. He's still really young after a couple years in the league. I agree with you.
Last year he's getting first team reps, looking like he belongs, loses the job. Like he's got to win it this year.
Yeah. Well, last year you give him the break a little bit because they had Quinion come in.
Yeah.
But this year with Slay gone, I think it will be disappointing if they have to start a Dory Jackson.
Agreed.
Because I don't think they want to. I think they want Keely to win that job.
And Dory's a great security blanket, plug and play. Like that's exactly how this should be drafted up, that you have that veteran presence to slide in if needed.
Yeah, he's kind of the insurance policy for Keely. That's the way I view it too. I think ultimately Keely will win that job, but yeah, it would be a little disappointing if he doesn't, because the ceiling's important too. Like when you're talking about your defense, which version of the defense has the potential to be better in December and January? The version with
the younger guys,
23, 24-year-old guy.
This is not hard science.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of with you. And I think Adoree will be good to push him, but ultimately I think that's going to be Keely Ringo's job.
Agreed.
Nolan Smith talked about how much Brandon Graham meant to him, and it's nothing that we haven't heard before, but he even admitted he was about to get emotional talking about it just because Nolan's first year was a little disappointing. I think people, maybe the expectations were a little too high for him because he had this like great training camp, and then didn't do much as a rookie, but he said Brandon Graham's story like really helped him kind of get through that and find his potential last year.
Yeah, and I don't think that Nolan is snubbing. Like, I think when we hear how much Brandon Graham means to this team, a lot of times it goes in one ear and out the other. But with Nolan, you could always tell how genuine it was. And when BG talked about Nolan, you could tell how genuine it was. We hear all the time, like, taking a player under their wing. They are the truest of true example of that.
The only other thing I had, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. today, he was asked about the axe chop in the Super Bowl. I thought that was a cool little anecdote. He said that, his teammates knew that he did that in college and that his dad did that with the Eagles, and they'd kind of been waiting for him to do it all year. And there would be certain plays where he would make a play on special teams and not do it, and his teammates would get on him. So he said when he actually finally pulled the trigger on it in the Super Bowl, making a big special teams tackle, that's why his teammates went so crazy.
Yes. And I loved when he talked about him having a ring and his dad not having a ring, but technically his dad does have a ring because it's the same name. I was like, all right, we're seeing some personality out of him.
That was good. He said it'll have Trotter on it.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's all the notes from today. It was a busy day down there.
Yes, lots to do.
And I appreciate you for stopping by.
Always.
Ashlyn.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor. Rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Quickly, please email us. We have a couple mailbags coming up, Reuben and I, eagleeye@nbcuni.com. You have the QR code. You can scan that and send it to us that way. But that's it for today. For Ashlyn Sullivan, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.